The private dining room at Belmont's was exactly the kind of place my parents loved. Dark wood paneling, leather chairs, paintings of fox hunts on the walls, and a sommelier who knew exactly which vintage would impress their guests. 40 people had gathered to celebrate my parents' 40th wedding anniversary, and every single one of them represented the kind of success my family valued. Wealth, status, connections. I sat at the far end of the table working on my salmon, listening to toasts that had been going on for nearly 30 minutes. My uncle praised my father's business acumen. My mother's college roommate praised her charity work. My sister Miranda stood and delivered a perfectly rehearsed speech about family values and legacy. Miranda was 29, 3 years younger than me, and everything my parents had hoped for in a daughter. She'd married well. Her husband Garrett came from old money and worked in private equity. She lived in the right neighborhood, belonged to the right clubs, and had mastered the art of appearing successful whether or not she actually was. And now, my father, Robert Kennedy, said as Miranda sat down, I'd like to say a few words about family and legacy. At 65, my father still commanded attention. He'd built Kennedy Enterprises from a small manufacturing company into a mid-sized corporation with 300 employees and annual revenue around $40 million. It wasn't Fortune 500, but it was respectable. It was something. My father started Kennedy Enterprises in 1962, Dad began, his voice taking on that formal tone he used for important speeches. He built it with his hands, his mind, and his determination. When he passed, he left it to me, and I've spent the last 30 years growing it, improving it, preparing it for the next generation. People nodded appreciatively. Several glanced at Miranda, assuming they knew where this was going. Succession planning is crucial, my father continued. You have to choose the right person to carry on the legacy. Someone who understands business. Someone who shares your values. Someone who's proven themselves capable. My mother, Patricia, was nodding along, dabbing at her eyes with a napkin. Which is why, my father said, pausing for effect, Patricia and I have made the decision to leave the majority of our estate, including all shares in Kennedy Enterprises, to our daughter Miranda. Applause erupted around the table. Miranda looked appropriately surprised and grateful, though I suspected she'd known this was coming. Garrett shook my father's hand across the table. Miranda has built a life we're proud of, my mother added, standing to join my father. She's made smart choices, married well, and understands what it means to be a Kennedy. She'll honor this family's legacy. More applause. More toasts. I took a sip of my water and continued eating my salmon. Now, my father said, and his eyes landed on me for the first time all evening, I know some of you might wonder about our other daughter, Claire. The table went noticeably quieter. Several people glanced at me with expressions ranging from pity to curiosity. Claire has chosen a different path, my father said carefully. She's 32 years old, unmarried, living in a small apartment, working in, what is it you do again, Claire? Something with consulting. Investment consulting, I replied calmly. Right. Investment consulting. He said it like he didn't quite believe it was a real job. The point is, Claire hasn't shown the same drive, the same ambition, the same commitment to excellence that we've always valued in this family. She's been, well, let's be honest. She's been a disappointment for years. The words hung in the air. Disappointment. Said openly in front of 40 people at an anniversary dinner. We've tried to guide her, my mother added, her voice taking on that martyred tone she did so well. We've offered her opportunities. We've introduced her to eligible men. We've suggested she join the country club, get involved with the right organizations, build a proper life. She's refused everything. So we've made our decision, my father concluded. Miranda gets the inheritance. The business, the properties, the investments, all of it. It's not meant to be cruel, Claire. It's just practical. We have to leave our legacy to someone who'll honor it. He raised his glass. To Miranda. The daughter who made us proud. To Miranda, the table chorused. I raised my water glass along with everyone else. To Miranda, I said quietly. Miranda looked across the table at me, and I saw something complicated in her expression. Triumph mixed with guilt, satisfaction mixed with uncertainty. She'd won, but the victory was tainted by the public humiliation of her sister. Claire, my mother said, her voice softer now, you understand, don't you? This isn't personal. I understand, I replied, setting down my glass. You're giving everything to Miranda because you believe she's more successful and more capable than I am. You think I've wasted my potential and disappointed you. You're worried I'd mismanage the inheritance. I get it. Exactly, my father said, looking relieved that I was being reasonable. I'm glad you see it that way. We do love you, my mother added. This isn't about love. It's about legacy. Of course, I said. Legacy is important. My phone began buzzing in my purse. I pulled it out and saw the caller ID. Richard Chin, attorney at law. The timing was perfect. Almost too perfect. I'd been expecting this call, but I'd thought it would come tomorrow. I'm sorry, I said to the table. I need to take this. It's my lawyer. Your lawyer? My father asked, frowning. Claire, we're in the middle of dinner. It's important, I said, standing up. It'll just take a moment. But instead of stepping away from the table, I answered the phone right there. And because I knew exactly what Richard was going to say, I put it on speaker. Richard, I answered. Good timing. Miss Kennedy, Richard's professional voice came through clearly. I'm calling to confirm that the acquisition has been completed. As of 4 p.m. today, you are now the majority shareholder of Kennedy Enterprises. You own 73% of all outstanding shares. The effect was instantaneous. Every conversation at the table stopped. Every head turned toward me. My father's wine glass slipped from his hand and shattered on the hardwood floor, dark red wine spreading across the expensive rug. 73%, I repeated for clarity. That's confirmed. Completely confirmed, Richard replied. The shares were purchased from 8 different minority shareholders who'd been looking to exit for the past 2 years. Your final offer was accepted by all parties. The paperwork is filed with the state. Kennedy Enterprises is now primarily owned by you. And the total investment? I asked, even though I knew the answer. $42 million, Richard said. Paid in full from your investment fund. Congratulations, Miss Kennedy. You now control the company your grandfather founded. Thank you, Richard. Send over the final documents tomorrow. Will do. Have a good evening. I hung up and set my phone on the table. The silence in the room was absolute. 40 people sat frozen, trying to process what they'd just heard. My father found his voice first. What did he just say? He said I bought Kennedy Enterprises, I replied calmly, sitting back down. Well, 73% of it. Dad, you own 20%. Various minority shareholders owned the remaining 7%. I bought out all the minority shareholders. Which means I now control the company. That's impossible, my mother whispered. Claire, you don't have $42 million. Actually, I have considerably more than that, I said. My total investment portfolio is currently valued at around $218 million. Kennedy Enterprises was just one acquisition. A significant one, certainly, but not my only holding. Miranda had gone pale. $218 million. Give or take a few million depending on market fluctuations, I confirmed. I started building my portfolio 10 years ago when I was 22. Small investments at first, but I had a good eye for undervalued assets. Over time, I built something substantial. Investment consulting, my father said numbly. You said you did investment consulting. I do, I replied. For myself. I manage my own portfolio through my firm Kennedy Capital Group. I'm the sole proprietor and primary investor. Though I do occasionally consult for other high-net-worth individuals who want my insights. Kennedy Capital Group, my Uncle Richard repeated. He pulled out his phone and started typing. Holy shit. Claire, you're listed as one of the top-performing private investors under 40. There are articles about you in financial journals. Several articles, I confirmed. Though I generally decline interviews. I prefer to keep a low profile. My father was staring at me like he'd never seen me before. You bought my company. You bought Kennedy Enterprises out from under me. I bought 73% of it, I corrected. You still own your 20%. But yes, I now control the company. I'm the majority shareholder, which means I have final say on all major decisions. Why? My mother asked, her voice breaking. Why would you do this? Because 18 months ago, you announced at Thanksgiving that you were planning to leave everything to Miranda, I explained. You said I was a disappointment, that I'd never made anything of myself, that I couldn't be trusted with the family legacy. So I decided to ensure that wouldn't be a problem. By stealing the company? Miranda said, finally finding her voice. By buying it legally from willing sellers, I corrected. The minority shareholders have been trying to exit for years, Dad. You know that. They've been unhappy with the company's direction, concerned about profitability, worried about succession planning. I simply offered them a fair price, actually above market value, and they accepted. My father's face had gone from pale to red. This is betrayal. This is strategic, I interrupted. This is strategic business planning. You taught me that, Dad. You always said business isn't personal, it's about making smart moves. So I made a smart move. But you're my daughter, he said, and there was genuine hurt in his voice. And you just announced to 40 people that I'm a disappointment who doesn't deserve to inherit anything from this family, I replied. So which is it, Dad? Am I your daughter who deserves consideration, or am I the family failure who needs to be cut out of the will? He didn't have an answer for that. Ms. Kennedy, one of my father's business associates said, a man named Thompson who I'd met at exactly 2 previous events. If you now control Kennedy Enterprises, what are your plans for the company? Excellent question, I said, grateful for someone who could move past the family drama to practical matters. I have several strategic initiatives planned. First, we're going to modernize operations. The manufacturing processes are outdated, costing us efficiency and money. Second, we're expanding into 3 new markets that analysis shows are underserved. Third, we're implementing an employee profit-sharing program to improve retention and productivity. Profit sharing, my father repeated. Claire, that will cost millions. That will improve morale and reduce turnover by an estimated 40%, I countered. I've run the numbers. It's a smart investment. The company has been stagnant for 5 years, Dad. Revenue flat, market share declining, employee satisfaction at all-time lows. We need significant changes. The company is fine, he insisted. The company is declining, I corrected gently. You've done an admirable job keeping it afloat, but you've been resistant to innovation. The minority shareholders saw that. That's why they wanted out. I'm offering them a better return on their investment than they'd get by staying with current management. Garrett, Miranda's husband, leaned forward. Current management. Does that mean you're removing Mr. Kennedy from leadership? No, I said, looking at my father. I'm offering him the position of chairman emeritus. He keeps his title, his office, his salary. But operational decisions will be made by the new CEO I'm bringing in. A woman named Sarah Martinez who's turned around 3 manufacturing companies in the last decade. You're replacing me, my father said, his voice hollow. I'm modernizing leadership structure, I replied. Dad, you're 65. You should be enjoying retirement, not fighting to keep a struggling company relevant. I'm offering you a graceful transition with full compensation and benefits. Most people would be grateful. Most people aren't being pushed out by their own daughters, he shot back. Most people aren't announcing at anniversary dinners that their daughters are disappointments, I countered. So I guess we're both doing unexpected things tonight. My mother stood up abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. This is unforgivable, Claire. You've humiliated your father. You've destroyed this family. I've secured the family business, I interrupted, standing to face her. Mom, Kennedy Enterprises was failing. Slowly, quietly, but failing. In 5 years, maybe less, it would have been worthless. The inheritance you were planning to leave Miranda? It would have been a liability, not an asset. I've ensured that doesn't happen. By stealing it, Miranda said again, her voice bitter. Miranda, I said, turning to my sister, the shares I bought were not Dad's shares. They weren't yours. They belonged to 8 individuals who were desperate to exit. I gave them that exit. I paid them fairly. I broke no laws and violated no agreements. This wasn't theft. It was business. Business, my father repeated. You sound like a stranger. I sound like someone who listened to every lesson you taught me, I replied. Buy low, sell high. Identify undervalued assets. Make strategic moves. Be decisive. Don't let emotion cloud judgment. Every principle you drilled into me about business I applied. I'm sorry the outcome isn't what you wanted, but the process was exactly what you taught me. I taught you so you could help the family business, he said. Not take it over. You taught me so Miranda could help the family business, I corrected. You made it clear I wasn't part of those plans. So I made my own plans. One of my mother's friends, a woman named Catherine who'd been sitting quietly, cleared her throat. Patricia, Robert, I think perhaps we should acknowledge something. Your daughter just revealed that she's built a $200 million investment portfolio by age 32. That's extraordinary. That's not the achievement of a disappointment. She did it by being ruthless, my mother said. By plotting behind our backs. She did it by being intelligent and strategic, Catherine interrupted gently. Perhaps instead of feeling betrayed you might consider feeling proud. Proud? My father asked incredulously. She just stole my company. I bought controlling interest in a struggling company and have plans to save it. I corrected for what felt like the 100th time. Dad, be honest. When was the last time you looked at the actual numbers? Really looked at them? He didn't answer. Revenue has been flat or declining for 5 years, I continued. Profit margins have shrunk every quarter. Employee turnover is at 38% annually. Do you know how expensive that is? 3 of your largest clients have indicated they're considering other vendors. The company is in trouble and you've been too proud to admit it. If it's in such trouble, why did you buy it? Miranda challenged. Because I can fix it, I replied simply. Because I have the capital, the connections, and the expertise to turn it around. In 3 years, Kennedy Enterprises will be worth double what it is today. In 5 years, triple. And when that happens, Dad's 20% stake will be worth significantly more than the entirety of what the company is worth now. That landed. I saw my father's expression shift from anger to calculation. You're saying my shares will increase in value, he said slowly. Substantially, I confirmed. You're currently holding 20% of a $40 million company. That's $8 million in value. In 5 years, if my projections are correct, you'll be holding 20% of a $120 million company. That's $24 million in value. And you expect me to just trust you on that? He asked. I expect you to look at my track record, I replied. I've taken 8 companies from underperforming to highly profitable in the last decade. Kennedy Enterprises will be number 9. You can fight me and watch your stake lose value, or you can work with me and watch it grow. Your choice. The private dining room had become something like a board meeting. The anniversary dinner was forgotten, the toasts and celebration abandoned in favor of the much more interesting drama of a daughter taking over her father's company. My Uncle Richard spoke up again. Robert, I've been looking at Claire's portfolio online. She's not exaggerating. She turned around Meridian Manufacturing, Highland Logistics, and Coastal Properties. Each one saw at least 150% growth under her guidance. How? My father asked, looking at me with genuine confusion. How did you do all of this without us knowing? Because you weren't looking, I said gently. You decided I was a disappointment based on the fact that I didn't marry well, didn't join the country club, didn't buy an expensive house. You saw those surface things and concluded I was failing. You never asked about my actual work, my actual investments, my actual success. You drive a Honda, my mother said weakly. Because luxury cars don't generate returns, I replied. That Honda cost me $30,000 and will last me 10 years. A luxury car would cost me $80,000 and depreciate faster. The $50,000 difference, invested properly, becomes $75,000 over 10 years. I chose investment over appearance. The apartment, Miranda said. You live in a tiny apartment in a mediocre neighborhood. I live in a 2-bedroom condo I bought for cash in an up-and-coming neighborhood, I corrected. A neighborhood I researched extensively and determined was undervalued. I bought that condo for $240,000 8 years ago. It's now worth $650,000. Again, smart investment over appearance. I could see them all recalculating, reevaluating, trying to reconcile the daughter they'd dismissed with the investor who'd just taken control of the family company. Why didn't you just tell us? My mother asked, and she sounded genuinely hurt. Claire, if you were this successful, why keep it secret? Because every time I tried to tell you, you dismissed it, I said, and I let some real emotion into my voice for the first time. 4 years ago at Christmas, I mentioned I was acquiring Meridian Manufacturing. You changed the subject to talk about Miranda's wedding plans. 3 years ago at Easter I told you I'd been named one of the top investors under 35. You asked when I was going to settle down and start a family. 2 years ago at Thanksgiving, the same Thanksgiving where you announced you were disinheriting me, I tried to explain my portfolio. You told me to stop living in fantasy land. We thought you were just talking big, my father said. Trying to make yourself feel better. I was telling you the truth, I replied. But you'd already decided I was a failure, so the truth didn't fit your narrative. It was easier to dismiss me than to question your assumptions. Miranda had been quiet for several minutes, just staring at her hands. Finally, she looked up at me. I don't know what to say. I thought, God, I've been so smug. I thought I was the successful one. I thought I'd won. You did win, I said gently. You won Mom and Dad's approval. You won the inheritance. You won exactly what you wanted. Their legacy, their blessing, their pride. I just bought a company. Different victories. But you're richer than all of us combined, she said. You have more success, more money, more power. How is that not winning? Because I didn't do it to win, I replied. I did it because I love building things. I love taking something broken and fixing it. I love the strategy, the analysis, the satisfaction of seeing projections become reality. The money is just a scorecard. It's not the point. Then what is the point? My father asked, and he sounded tired now, all the bluster gone. The point is that I'm good at this, I said simply. Investment, strategy, turnarounds. I'm exceptionally good at it. I could have done this in partnership with you, Dad. We could have grown Kennedy Enterprises together. But you didn't see me as capable. You saw me as a disappointment. So I did it alone. He looked down at the table at the shattered wine glass and the spreading stain. I failed you, he said quietly. As a father, I failed you. You taught me everything I needed to succeed, I countered. You just refused to see that I was applying those lessons. That's different from failing. My mother reached across the table and took my hand. Can we fix this? Claire, can we somehow repair what we've broken? I don't know, I said honestly. That depends on whether you're willing to actually see me. Not the daughter you wanted. Not the daughter you expected. But the actual daughter you have. The one who built a $200 million portfolio, who just bought your company, who's been succeeding quietly while you've been busy being disappointed. I want to try, she said. Robert. My father nodded slowly. I want to try too. Though I'll admit this is going to take some getting used to. My daughter is now my boss. Not your boss, I corrected. Majority shareholder. There's a difference. You're still chairman emeritus. You still have influence, input, respect. I'm not trying to diminish you, Dad. I'm trying to save what you built. By taking it over, he said, but there was less anger in his voice now. By investing in it, I replied. With capital, expertise, and genuine commitment to its success. That's what I do. That's who I am. The dinner had completely derailed at this point. Some guests had quietly left, uncomfortable with the family drama. Others remained, fascinated by the unfolding story. The waiters had stopped serving, unsure whether to continue or just let the evening end. I think, my Uncle Richard said diplomatically, that perhaps we should adjourn for the evening. Robert, Patricia, congratulations on 40 years of marriage. That's a real achievement. And Claire, congratulations on building something remarkable. Even if it surprised the hell out of all of us. People began gathering their things, offering awkward goodbyes and congratulations that didn't quite fit the situation. Miranda and Garrett left quickly, Miranda avoiding eye contact. Various relatives and friends filtered out, already pulling out their phones to text about what had just happened. Soon it was just me, my parents, and Uncle Richard remaining in the private dining room. $218 million, my father said, still processing. Claire, that's more money than I'll ever see in my lifetime. Probably, I agreed. But you built something that mattered. You employed hundreds of people. You created value beyond just money. That counts for something. Not enough, apparently, he said bitterly. Dad, stop, I said firmly. This isn't a competition. I'm not trying to prove I'm better than you. I'm trying to ensure that what you built doesn't die. Kennedy Enterprises matters. To you, to the employees, to the community. I'm not taking it from you. I'm investing in its future. By removing me from leadership, he said. By updating leadership structure to reflect modern business realities, I countered. You can still be involved. You can still advise, guide, mentor. But day-to-day operations need fresh vision. Surely you can see that. He was quiet for a long moment. Then he looked at my mother. Patricia, our daughter is right. The company has been struggling. I've been too proud to admit it. I know, she said softly. I've known for a while. But I didn't want to add to your stress. So instead you planned to leave it to Miranda, I said, who has no business experience and would have run it into the ground within 2 years. That's harsh, my mother protested. That's accurate, I replied. Miranda is many things, but she's not a business person. Leaving her a struggling company would have been setting her up for failure. This way I save the company, your investment maintains value, and Miranda still gets whatever other assets you plan to leave her. Everybody wins. Except we've been publicly humiliated, my father said. You publicly humiliated me first, I reminded him gently. You called me a disappointment in front of 40 people. Said I wasn't worthy of the family legacy. I simply responded by demonstrating that I'm more capable than you realized. By ambushing us, my mother said. By choosing the same venue where you chose to disinherit me, I corrected. Symmetry seemed appropriate. Uncle Richard laughed suddenly. She's got you there, Robert. You made a dramatic announcement about legacy. She responded with an equally dramatic revelation. I'd call that fair play. My father managed a weak smile. I suppose I taught you that too. If you're going to make a move, make it count. You did, I agreed. Among many other lessons I apparently learned better than you realized. So what happens now? My mother asked. Where do we go from here? That's up to you, I said. I'm going to move forward with my plans for Kennedy Enterprises. I'll implement the changes I outlined. I'll work with Sarah Martinez to modernize operations. And I'll make the company profitable and sustainable. You can choose to be part of that process or you can choose to fight it. But either way it's happening. And if we choose to be part of it? My father asked. Then we work together, I replied. You provide historical knowledge and relationship connections. I provide capital and strategic vision. We combine your experience with my expertise and create something stronger than either of us could alone. That sounds like a partnership, he said. It could be, I agreed. If you're willing to see me as a partner rather than a disappointing daughter. He looked at me for a long time, really looked at me, maybe for the first time in years. I'm willing to try. I'm sorry. For the disappointment comment, for underestimating you, for not seeing what you were building. I'm genuinely sorry. Thank you, I said, and I meant it. That's a start. My mother stood and walked around the table to embrace me. I'm proud of you, she whispered. I should have said that years ago. I'm so proud of what you've accomplished. I hugged her back, feeling years of tension begin to ease. Thank you, Mom. That means more than you know. As we left the restaurant together, my parents, my uncle, and me, I felt something shift. The family dinner had been a disaster by any conventional measure. But it had also been necessary. Sometimes you have to break things before you can rebuild them properly. In the parking lot, my father paused beside his car. Claire, that company, Kennedy Enterprises, my father started it. It bears our name. It's been my life's work. I know, I said. Take care of it, he said, his voice thick with emotion. Please. Make it something he'd be proud of. I will, I promised. That's why I bought it. Not to take it from you, but to ensure it survives and thrives. Grandpa's legacy is safe with me. He nodded, unable to speak, and got in his car. As I drove home that night, in my practical Honda, to my modest but appreciated condo, living the life I'd built without anyone's approval, I thought about legacy. My father thought legacy was about passing down a company. My mother thought it was about maintaining appearances and status. But I knew better. Real legacy was about building something that mattered, something that lasted, something that created value beyond just money or status. Kennedy Enterprises would be that kind of legacy. And I was exactly the right person to ensure it.